If Boise State wants to repeat as the Group of 5 playoff representative, they cannot lose their first game of the year.
You are Locked On College Football with Spencer McLaughlin, your daily podcast on all things college football. Part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day.
Welcome, everybody, to another episode of Locked On College Football. I'm your host, Spencer McLaughlin. Thank you all so much for making this your first listen or your first view every day. It's part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day, and your daily source to stay up to date with the biggest stories in the greatest sport on planet Earth, which begins in earnest this week and is already a little bit underway. We got a nice appetizer, the entree. The main course this weekend is coming up. Shout out to my everydayers out there. Auburn needs to beat Baylor, but does Baylor need to beat Auburn? We'll debate that on today's show, and I'm making my first big game pick of week one, Texas, Ohio State. I'll tell you who's going to win and why. Let's start with something that I have long reminded my everydayers out there of, and that's that, as I always say, far be it from me to forget to inform you, the college football public, that a Group of 5 team is going to get into the playoff every single year. Boise State opens this season at South Florida. Don't mess around with the Bulls. If Boise State loses that game, they come in with two ingrained advantages to be the Group of 5 playoff representative once again. Number one, they made it last year. So they're in the preseason top 25. They are the only Group of 5 team that is in the preseason top 25 this year. The only one. That's a pretty sizable advantage. Number two, and they have earned this, you can like it in the Group of 5 ranks, you cannot like it. Brand power. We all know it matters. We see it in the preseason rankings every year. I don't think there is any reason other than brand power that Florida, Oklahoma, and Michigan are ranked inside the top 20. Two of those are preseason top 15 teams coming into the year. That is the power of brand power, and Boise State has that advantage. If they lose this week, they could still make the playoff, but the control of that playoff goes out of their own hands because their biggest competitor, according to the odds market, and I believe as well, I'm not sleeping on teams like James Madison. I can see other Group of 5 teams popping up. I'm not ignoring Memphis as a potential Group of 5 playoff candidate this year. But the top two teams, in my view, and in the view of the odds market, are Boise State number one and Tulane number two. If you're a futures kind of guy, Tulane to make the playoff is pretty solid value out there. I'm just throwing it out there. Jake Retzloff is the quarterback. He just won 11 games with BYU. Now he's down at Tulane in case you are tuning back into college football for the first time. Boise State's game against South Florida this week, as crazy as this sounds, is one of their more high-profile games of the year. Sure, they have a mid-season non-conference bout against Notre Dame. Anybody think they're going into South Bend and winning that one? CJ Carr will have had a handful of starts under his belt. I don't. Unless the Broncos are going to pull an absolute stunner there in South Bend in the middle of the season, Boise State has to win basically every other game. Maybe they could have one stumble, maybe. But here's the problem that they run into, and I'll get to Tulane in just a moment. The Broncos don't have many opportunities for, even if you're just viewing this through a Group of 5 lens, what you would consider quality victories. UNLV, on paper, looks interesting. Dan Mullen's a big name. Maybe they'll play better football than they did over the weekend. But they opened against FCS Idaho State. They were losing in the second half. I think UNLV is going to be just fine under Dan Mullen. For this year, our one piece of data so far isn't very good. You go up and down Boise State's schedule and you say, where are the great wins? It's Colorado State, I suppose, is capable of being a good team. They're kind of a dark horse in the Mountain West. Okay. But there are no other. Appalachian State? Okay. That's all right. It pales in comparison to the opportunities presented to Tulane to build the best Group of 5 conference champion resume. This applies to Memphis as well, but Tulane specifically, who plays Northwestern this week. Do you realize how good Tulane is expected to be over there in the American Conference? They're playing a Power 4 opponent on Saturday. Northwestern, is that a good Power 4 opponent? No. They do have a former American quarterback in Preston Stone. If you missed that element of the quarterback carousel, he's going to be a Wildcat and line up for David Braun. They're going to Tulane. The Green Wave are at home. They are a 6-point favorite. A 6-point favorite. I don't care which Power 4 team you are playing. The level of respect given by our friends at FanDuel and odds makers all over the country to Tulane in that spot is representative of what I'm talking about. Boise State doesn't have a margin for error. If the Broncos lose this weekend to South Florida, which on the road, week 1, long trip, good coach, solid program, we'll see how they end up being this year. If they lose that game, they lose their biggest advantage to get that Group of 5 playoff spot over the Green Wave or any other challenger. And that is ingrained perception of strength. And if you lose that game, you don't have that many chances realistically to win it back unless you're going to pull a massive upset at Notre Dame. So for Boise State in this one, I'm interested in a couple things. Number one, what does the run game look like without Ashton Genty? I think it will be good. Get to know the name Sire Gaines. You're going to learn it if you watch the Boise State game later this week. But if the Broncos are not able to run the ball at the same level they were last year because there's no Genty, there has to be some drop-off. Is it big? We'll see. We'll see how committed they're capable of being to the run. Can Maddox Madsen be a guy that you rely on? He's always been, and this has a negative connotation, not to me, a high-end game manager. Is he someone who you can run the offense through at times this season? They had some turnover in the wide receiver room. We're going to find out. But Boise State cannot afford, really, I don't think any stumbles outside of Notre Dame or Tulane's going to have the edge. Because if Tulane pulls off the win this week against Notre Dame and beats either Duke at home in 2 weeks in the Darian Mensah Bowl or Ole Miss on the road a couple weeks after that, which I'm not expecting, Duke is certainly a winnable game. I think Duke's a darn good team. But again, when you're competing in the eyes of the committee for that Group of 5 playoff spot, what are they looking for? Quality outcomes against competition that's in a bigger conference. Well, if Tulane can dangle a Big Ten win over the head of Boise State, and the Broncos are looking up going, we've got wins against Appalachian State and Colorado State and a conference title. If Tulane at the end of the year, led by BYU fall camp transfer Jake Retzloff, winds up being the American Conference champ, even one Power 4 win, I think, can do wonders. So Boise State has the edge. They're the favorite. They should be. If they do not win later this week, they are going to have serious problems, and they're frankly going to need some help, or else Tulane will be the team, I think, even though they might have one more loss, that can control its own destiny to get to the college football playoff. I'm sure none of you have thoughts on any of that. Let me know in the comments below the thoughts you definitely do not have on the Group of 5 playoff hunt. Far be it from me to forget to inform you all that that is going to happen again and every season from here on out. Here, let me rephrase. Not Auburn. Hugh Freeze needs to beat Baylor this week. Does Dave Aranda have the same pressure? Plus thoughts on that game with Cam Stuart of Locked On Baylor coming up next. First, this episode brought to you by FanDuel. Today, as this show airs, August 26th is officially FanDuel Futures Day, a brand new holiday for football fans who live for bold predictions and preseason hunches. For just 24 hours, FanDuel's giving you deals on NFL season predictions. So whether you're calling your MVP, eyeing a long shot division winner, go Seahawks, or ready to crown your Super Bowl champ before week 1 even kicks off, this is your moment. And if you are ready, with futures bets for college football, you can bet those too. You've got national title odds, conference title odds, over-under win totals for every team in the country you could possibly want to bet. It's all over there at FanDuel to make the college football season, which is here, even better. Visit the FanDuel app today and start planning your futures bets now, because Future Day is one day and one day only. FanDuel, play your game. Few coaches in college football need a win in week 1 more than Hugh Freeze when he travels to Waco, Texas, head coach of the Auburn Tigers. What about the other side, though? Does Dave Aranda there's a difference between really want and need a win. Cam Stuart of Locked On Baylor Bears is here. Is that how you would describe it, Cam? Does Dave Aranda need to beat Auburn, or else conversations are going to start to stir amongst the Baylor Bear faithful?
I don't think so. In fact, if you had to put in front of me these two coaches and be like, which one's more on the hot seat if they lose this game, to me it's comfortably Hugh Freeze. And maybe that's not entirely justified. Like, Dave Aranda had the bounce back year last year. They started 2-4. But you bring so much of that back, Spencer, that you're like, okay, they lost to Auburn. Wasn't their day. Like, they got a game next week where they could make a statement again against SMU, a team that was in the college football playoff last year. They still have one of the best quarterbacks in the Big 12, if not the country. They still have, a good running attack. Like, they still have a lot of pieces in place. They've probably got the right quarterback, offensive coordinator, running back. Like, I think there's still some hope. If Auburn loses, though, I think there's a lot more questions. You look at, I've heard about it, Spencer. I've heard about it for weeks now, how much talent this Auburn Tiger team has. Mm-hmm. And if they can't beat a Big 12 team, then I think that's like chopping block, Hugh Freeze.
Yeah, I think that's where the conversation should go. If I haven't decided yet for my pick in this game, I'll do that later in the week.
Jackson Arnold throws it. Is that what we're? No, nice. He doesn't throw picks. I've been told.
That's true. He's a new man. Admitted.
Look what Hugh Freeze did with Peyton Thorne.
That's my concern with Auburn. I'll get Zach Blackerby of Locked On Auburn later this week on the show to talk about that angle. But like, coming into the season, I have Auburn going under 7.5 wins because last year, I'm not saying that last year should have been an SEC championship year. I'm sorry, that should have been better. It should not have looked as bad as it was. And now I'm hearing all this stuff about Auburn, and they're going to play a couple different quarterbacks and have like 7 guys call the plays. And I do not get the greatest of vibes. But Hugh Freeze has a chance to shut us all up this weekend if he goes into Waco and wins. But you're the Baylor guy, of course. By the way, that helmet is spectacular. That's really good. Did you buy that from Bryce Petty himself? Is that where that came from?
Bryce Petty carved it himself.
Carved it himself.
Yeah,
that's phenomenal. Cool. That's what I thought of when I saw that helmet. For those watching on YouTube, you get it. But Baylor wins this game against Auburn, which is one of the under-the-radar non-conference games in the country this week that people need to be paying attention to, not just for the coaching reasons that we mentioned. Baylor wins this game if what?
Baylor wins this game if they dominate the quarterback battle, which I think could very well happen. And they dominate this game or they win this game, I guess I should say. They win this game if Jackson Arnold's got to throw it 35 times. That's a big number for an offense like Auburn and what they're trying to do. If Jackson Arnold is throwing it that much, that means things aren't going that well. There's a very small chance that he's throwing it 30, 35 times, and it's a good sign for Auburn. Let's just put it that way. Even though I agree they have a ton of talent at receiver. So that's how Baylor wins this game.
Singleton and Cam Coleman are potentially, we haven't seen them play together in a real football game yet, but that could be a top 10 conservatively wide receiver duo in the entire country. I say conservatively because I didn't prep to debate for the top 10 wide receiver duos in all of college football.
You brought it up, man.
I did. That's why I went on the conservative end before Auburn people jumped down my throat. But for Baylor, you talked about.
By the way, sorry, real quick.
Yeah, go ahead.
I want to agree with you. I want to pump up the tires a little bit. Cam Coleman is probably the best receiver that Baylor's going to face all year because he's probably a top 5 to 10, conservatively top 10 wide receiver in all of college football.
Yeah,
Jordan Tyson's pretty good.
Jordan Tyson is very good. This
Eric
is
Singleton,
this is known.
Good. But I think Cam Coleman's the best one they'll face all year.
Yeah, top 10 all of college football. Jeremiah Smith is 1. Ryan Williams probably 2.
Yeah, I was gonna say then you're talking Coleman. That's
Cam
where
Coleman
he's
doesn't
like top 5, top 3.
And again, he flew under the radar last year compared to those other guys. Why? Because Auburn kept losing, so they weren't on the national spotlight as much as they should have been, and the offense was putrid. It was absolutely awful. But hey, bring in a guy that just had a terrible season and got benched at one point, even though I didn't think it was all his fault at Oklahoma, and everything's going to be A-okay. So
catch the fever.
The talent for Auburn, you mentioned that. I think this is why a lot of people are going to pick Auburn to win this game. I think it's why the Tigers are a 2-point favorite, even though the game is being played in Waco. Game 1, crowd is going to be on fire. It better be a sellout there for the Bears faithful. But how confident are you in this Baylor Bears, we'll say front seven most notably, to force Auburn into that game plan you mentioned where Jackson Arnold has to drop back and throw 30 times?
I think it's sneaky good, Spencer. I think that front seven is sneaky good, and maybe it's because I don't feel that great on the back end of Baylor's defense. But a lot of people don't like this, but I'm going with what Dave Aranda has said during fall camp. And Dave Aranda is honest to a fault, okay? A lot of times it gets him in trouble how honest he is about his team, and he has not shut up the whole fall about how much better this pass rush is. And it needs to be. Right. And he's got guys who will actually fit the jack position that Dave Aranda loves. They're known for throwing a ton of fronts at you, really confusing a quarterback. And that's the last thing that Jackson Arnold needs. I think this is an improved pass rush. I think they're not playing guys, or they don't have to play guys out of position the way they have the last couple of years. Nose tackle was a bit of a work in progress. Really, the last 2 years, they've rotated a bunch of new guys in there. They've got guys who can actually play their position, Spencer. I think this is, it's tough to base it off last season in this particular position group, but I think they will be one of the top pass rushes in Big 12 this year. So to say that, because Auburn's in the SEC, which they do have a good offensive line, but because Auburn's in the SEC, they're automatically just 3 leagues higher than anybody else on the line, I think is disingenuous.
Well, Vegas is telling you they don't think that's the case, because if you have that big of an advantage in the trenches, as I'm sure plenty down in Auburn country feel, then it wouldn't be just a 2-point spread. It would be like an 8 or 10-point spread. And also, point spreads are just that. Not hypothetical. They're real numbers that can be wagered upon over with our friends at FanDuel. But Auburn last year was a 12.5-point favorite against Cal. They did not win that football game. Despite no, they didn't. But they were better in the trenches in that particular day. I think Baylor's in a better place than Cal last year.
Were they more talented than Cal last year?
Yes, absolutely.
Okay. And they had the same coach, right?
They did. They did indeed have the same coach.
Sorry, just wanted to get that.
Yeah. No, I understand. I understand why you would want to, as a Baylor guy, say something like that. So before I ask you one final question, so I guess that means there are 2 final questions here, Cam. What's your confidence level that Baylor wins this game?
Good. I wouldn't say great. I'm not
on a 1 to 10. 10 being this is Missouri State, Southern Technical College.
I'm thinking 6.9, but I'll round up to 7.
Okay.
How about that? I'll round up to 7 for the audience. I think that, you can go position by position group and hypotheticals and all of this, and these guys we haven't seen play for Auburn yet. I've seen these guys play for Baylor. I have, and I think they're good. And I think they're just, right now in week 1, a better team than Auburn. That's why. Okay. I don't think they're going to run. I don't think they're going to win by 30, but I'm feeling good.
A solid 7 out of 10. Speaking of 7, their win total for the year is 7.5. Do you like the over?
Yes.
For the Baylor Bears?
No, sorry. I don't like the over. I love the over.
Yeah, there it is.
I am in a long-term relationship with the over. Okay. I have met the over's parents.
Long-term.
They love me. All right. Every night with over just gets better and better. I am so into the over for the Baylor Bears.
That's great. That is the good stuff. I can't get a feel because I've been down on teams this offseason that started like crap and then got hot and we're like, oh, look, this is what we were. Like Florida. Everybody loves Florida because they finished the season really strong. And I'm like, okay, am I supposed to just ignore the games that looked like crap? It's the same staff. It's like Auburn last year beat Texas A&M. They shouldn't have, but they did. And you went, wait, this is the Auburn team we saw. Like the first part of the year counts too. That's where I struggle with Baylor.
Well, and I get that because, right, the 24 games before that were bad before the 6-game winning streak, right? 2-4 to 3-9 to losing their last 4 in the final part of 2022. I get that. But the farther we go in football, in the 2020s now. I don't know if you're caught up with that, Spencer. We're midway through the 2020s.
I am. Yes.
Like, so much at every level of football just comes down to the quarterback. And Baylor's got at least a year of a good quarterback here in Sawyer Robertson, but I'm going to go even beyond that because I get it. But it's much easier for me to make that argument of here's what we really are, because you did have a new offensive coordinator start last season. You did bring in a new quarterback in week 2 because you didn't win the starting quarterback job in fall camp. You know, you saw the emergence of a running back and a wide receiver, number 1 at both those positions for you in the depth chart, who are both coming back. So it's kind of what I said earlier, like if Dave Aranda loses this game, there's still a lot to be confident about in Baylor because you've seen these players play. And that's what I'm kind of looking at for the over here. You've got the quarterback. You've got the offensive coordinator. And in a lot of times in college football these days, those are the 2 most important things to know that you have nailed on good. That doesn't mean automatically they're a 10-win team. They could fall short of that number, and then heads will start to roll because you did know that you had those guys in place. So I love this Baylor team. I love its identity, and I think they've built around that identity.
I do like Jake Spavital at offense coordinator. I think he's good. I think he is really conservatively. That's our phrase of the day, Cam. Remember, conservatively top 10. Cam Stuart, Locked On Baylor Bears. I don't have a pick on that game yet. That comes later in the week. I do have a pick for Ohio State, Texas. First, this episode brought to you by Rugia. Guys, you've probably heard of Viagra or Cialis. Maybe you've even tried them. But if you're looking for something beyond the usual pill, it's time to meet Rugia Ready. Rugia Ready is a next-gen prescription treatment designed to amplify arousal in the brain and boost blood flow. Unlike the usual pills that can take hours, Rugia's 3-in-1 formula dissolves under your tongue and kicks in fast, on average in 15 minutes. Effects can last up to 36 hours, so you can stay confident and in control when the moment is right. If traditional options haven't worked, Rugia might be the answer. Over 150,000 men have already made the switch. Head to Rugia.com/LockedOnCollege. Use the code LockedOnCollege, all one word, to get 15% off today. That's RUGIET.com/LockedOnCollege. Use the promo code LockedOnCollege for 15% off. Individual results may vary with prescription treatment. Compounded drugs are permitted to be prescribed under federal law but are not FDA approved and do not undergo FDA safety, effectiveness, or manufacturing review. Please visit the Rugia website for full safety information. Check them out at Rugia.com/LockedOnCollege. Texas, Ohio State, game of the week for week 1. I love these sorts of games. First of all, round of applause for Texas. They played at Michigan last year. They're playing at Ohio State this year. They played at Alabama the year before. They are road warriors down there in Austin. That's a double round of applause. And Ohio State, round of applause. They didn't have a marquee non-conference game a year ago. It didn't stop them from winning the national championship. I want to see more games like this, as I have talked about earlier on some recent episodes of the show. You can go check those out if you missed them. I want to see more games like this. The SEC adopting a scheduling philosophy that makes my heart so very happy. I'm like the Grinch. My heart grows 3 sizes when I see 9 conference games in a Power 4 non-conference requirement. We should celebrate these games. We should celebrate the teams and programs, not severely punish them if they lose, because someone does have to lose. You've got the preseason number 1 Texas Longhorns, the preseason number 3 Ohio State Buckeyes. I like Texas to win this football game for a couple of reasons. Reason number 1, the coaching staff. I have never been a huge Ryan Day hater. The crowd that wanted him fired from the Buckeyes a season ago, I imagine has piped down a little bit. They're not shouting from the rooftops, you got to get rid of this guy, because, well, we all saw what happened in that college football playoff run. I'm talking about the guys that are next to him. Did you know that Ryan Day has a new defensive coordinator? It's Matt Patricia. Yeah, that one from the NFL. Did you know he has a new offensive coordinator? It's his former receivers coach, Brian Hart, who has been an offensive coordinator before. Hasn't been a play caller before. In 2023, Hartline was the OC. Ryan Day was the play caller. Day only gave up play calling duties in 2024 for Chip Kelly. It was going to be Bill O'Brien. Then, of course, it was Chip Kelly. We know how that went. So now Brian Hartline gets his shot. He hasn't called plays before. Matt Patricia just got there. as a defense coordinator. Meanwhile, I know what Steve Sarkisian has done as an offensive play caller, and sometimes in big games, his teams have had a tendency to come out on script really, really well, and then in the second half, they kind of falter, but they end up getting it done. Do you know why? Because Pete Kwiatkowski, I hope I'm pronouncing that correctly, is Texas's defensive coordinator and is one of the most underrated coaching names in all of college football. People talk a lot about the Texas defense, but they don't bring up, I'm just going to call him Coach Pete, they don't bring up Coach Pete very often. Well, he has been nothing short of sensational over the last several years. He's been there with Steve Sarkisian the entire time. Sark's always been the play caller, so you've got the same OC and the same defensive coordinator going up against a new OC and a new defensive coordinator and a brand new quarterback who hasn't actually played meaningful college football before. Arch Manning's experience is not expansive. I'm not sitting here arguing otherwise. That would be literally arguing against the facts of life. But he has still played more games in college football than Julian Sayin has. Yeah, he started against inferior competition. I'm not disputing that. But Texas's coaching continuity here, to me, gives them the edge over Ryan Day and Ohio State, who I expect to be a really good team. I think Julian Sayin can be a really good quarterback. Remember, this was Nick Saban's quarterback of the future until Nick Saban retired. The talent is there, but I'm supposed to expect that in Sayin's first game, it's not Arch Manning's, so experience not plentiful for the quarterbacks in this game, but advantage Texas. Julian Sayin's first game with his new offensive coordinator, who's new to calling plays, is just going to go toe-to-toe with a veteran defensive coordinator that personnel-wise could have the best defense in college football this year. Certainly they're going to have one of them. I mean, Anthony Hill, Colin Simmons, just a couple of dudes who we already probably know the names of that are big-time playmakers for this Texas defense. So that's the first thing. Reason number two, I like Texas to win this game. You can call this media commentary, made up, it doesn't exist, it doesn't matter. Okay. You ever hear the term championship hangover? I think this Ohio State team can win the Big Ten. I think this Ohio State team can go out and win a couple of playoff games. Ryan Day is that caliber of coach. They recruit at that sort of level. They are returning outside of the top 90 nationally. They're in about the mid-40s for returning production from last year's team. Like I was just talking about with the coordinators, it's going to take them a while to figure it out. And yeah, I do think there's an element of Ryan Day just climbed the mountaintop. They were just right up there. Look at what happened to Michigan last year in their first game, post-national championship winning season, post working out some changes on the coaching staff, and post losing a lot of that team. Early in the year, Texas went in and beat the crap out of them. Now, this Ohio State team, much better than 2023 Michigan. I feel that coming into the year. I think that will hold up by the end of the season. Ohio State, like Oregon, is going to be one of those teams this year that's really good, but is going to play its best ball by the end of the year because they're having to figure some things out. The difference is Oregon opens with Montana State, Oklahoma State, at Northwestern, and Oregon State as their first four games before they play Penn State. So I think they have a better chance to win that game. I still think the Nittany Lions wind up prevailing. For Ohio State to just get thrown into the fire, the last game they played, was the national championship game, for goodness sake. New quarterback, new coordinators, and there's something to be said. You can call it wishful thinking because I'm picking Texas to win the game. You can call it a media made-up narrative. You do whatever you like. I frankly could not care less. So I like Texas to win this game. I think this is really fun. This is the first game we're all going to be watching at 12 o'clock Eastern time. I think Texas wins. I will take the Longhorns. The over-under is 47.5. I'm taking the under. I don't think either team with young quarterbacks, week one's firing on all cylinders. 24-20. I think Texas knocks off Ohio State, holds on to that number one ranking, and history says they don't go win the national championship. You know what? They might not. There are some other pretty good teams like Clemson, my national championship pick, or Penn State, that's a really experienced team. Amongst others, Notre Dame, I think, could be really good. But week one, I'll take Texas over Ohio State in the game of the week. That's the first pick I'm making this week on the show. There are going to be a lot of other ones. Later in this week, I will pick Baylor Auburn. That game is on a Friday. I have not forgotten. That Boise State game is on a Thursday. I think the Broncos win. For the rest of the picks this week, tune into the rest of the episodes that you will hear on this very feed. Appreciate everyone listening. I will see you next time. And until then, hope you all have a wonderful rest of your day.